The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, but they wouldn't arrive in time. Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies and the 42nd richest man in America, knew he was dying on the cold pavement of a Chicago alley. Blood pooled beneath him from the stab wound in his side, his vision blurring as he stared up at the narrow strip of night sky between the buildings. He'd been so careful. 20 years of building an empire, of security details and armored cars, only to be taken down by a random mugging gone wrong. The irony would have been funny if he could still breathe properly. "Help!" he whispered, though no sound came out. His phone lay shattered 3 feet away, his driver unconscious near the town car. The muggers had fled with his wallet, leaving him to bleed out like he was nothing, like he was nobody. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. Footsteps approached. Marcus tried to turn his head, expecting the police or paramedics, or perhaps the muggers returning to finish the job. Instead, he saw a woman. She was in her 60s, maybe 70s, wearing a worn winter coat and pushing a shopping cart filled with plastic bags. Her dark skin was weathered, lined with years Marcus couldn't begin to imagine. A homeless woman. His fading consciousness registered this with the detached observation of a man who'd stopped expecting rescue. She would walk past. Of course she would. Why would she help him? But she didn't walk past. "Oh, Lord," she said, her voice strong despite her apparent age. She dropped to her knees beside him with surprising agility, her hands immediately pressing against his wound. "Stay with me, son. Stay with me." Marcus tried to speak, but she shushed him. "Don't talk. Save your strength. I've called 911. She pulled out a flip phone, ancient technology he hadn't seen in years, and he realized she must have already called before approaching him. "Pressure," she muttered to herself. "Need to keep pressure." She pulled off her coat despite the February cold and wadded it against his side. The pain made him gasp, but her face remained calm, focused. "I know it hurts, baby, but you gotta let me help you." Her hands were steady. Too steady. Marcus's mind, even in its dying state, recognized something familiar in her movements. Medical training, perhaps, but that made no sense. Homeless people weren't doctors. "The ambulance is coming," she said, her voice gentle but firm. 2 minutes out. You're going to make it, you hear me? I didn't survive 68 years just to watch another young person die in these streets. Marcus wanted to tell her he wasn't that young. He was 43. But darkness was creeping in from the edges of his vision. He could feel his body shutting down, feel the cold settling into his bones. "No, no, no." Her voice cut through the fog. "Look at me. Look at my eyes." He forced his gaze to focus on her face. Brown eyes, deep and knowing, looked back at him with an intensity that anchored him to consciousness. "What's your name?" she asked. Marcus," he managed. "Marcus. Good. I'm Dorothy. Dorothy Williams. And you're going to remember that name because I'm about to save your life." Her hands never stopped their pressure on his wound. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus. You got family?" "Wife," he breathed. "Daughter." "There you go. Think about them. What's your daughter's name?" "Lily." "Beautiful name. How old is Lily?" The ambulance lights flashed at the mouth of the alley, red and blue painting the brick walls. Dorothy didn't move, didn't look away from Marcus's face, just kept talking to him, keeping him conscious, keeping him alive. The paramedics took over, and the last thing Marcus saw before they loaded him into the ambulance was Dorothy standing back, her coat soaked with his blood, watching to make sure he was stable. She didn't try to speak to the police, didn't ask for anything, just watched until the doors closed, then turned and walked back to her shopping cart. 3 weeks later, Marcus Chen stood in his corner office on the 72nd floor of Chen Tower, looking out over Lake Michigan. The wound had healed, though the scar remained. So did the memory. He tried to find Dorothy Williams. His head of security had spent 2 weeks searching, checking shelters, asking around the neighborhood where he'd been attacked. Nothing. It was as if she'd vanished. "Mr. Chen." His assistant, Jennifer, knocked and entered. "Your 3 o'clock is here." Send them in. The door opened, and a woman in an expensive navy suit entered, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Late 30s, professional, confident. Behind her came a young man carrying a briefcase. Mr. Chen, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Sarah Williams, attorney with Morrison & Blake. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Marcus shook her hand, gesturing for them to sit. Your message said it was urgent regarding the incident 3 weeks ago? Yes. Sarah opened the briefcase her associate placed on the desk, removing a folder. I represent the estate of Dorothy Williams. Marcus's heart stopped. Estate. I'm sorry to inform you that Dorothy passed away 4 days ago. Heart failure. She was 68 years old. Sarah's professional demeanor softened slightly. I understand she saved your life that night. I've been looking for her, Marcus said quietly. I wanted to thank her, to help her. I know. She saw the news reports. She knew you were searching. Sarah slid the folder across the desk. Mr. Chen, Dorothy Williams was my mother, and she wanted me to give you this after she passed. With trembling hands, Marcus opened the folder. Inside was a letter, written in elegant cursive on simple notebook paper. Dear Marcus, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't feel bad. I've known my heart was failing for months. The doctors gave me 3 months, maybe 4. I got 4.5, so I did all right. I know you've been looking for me. I know you want to say thank you, maybe give me money, set me up somewhere nice. That's kind of you, son. But I don't need it. I never did. You see, I wasn't always homeless. 23 years ago, I was Dr. Dorothy Williams, Chief of Emergency Medicine at Cook County Hospital. I had a house in Lincoln Park, drove a Mercedes, wore designer clothes. I had everything you have now. Then my husband got sick. Cancer. Our insurance denied the experimental treatment that might have saved him. I spent everything, our savings, retirement, the house, trying to keep him alive. It wasn't enough. He died, and I was left with nothing but debt. I tried to go back to work, but the grief was too much. I made mistakes. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. I lost my medical license after a patient died because I was too broken to think straight. Lost everything else soon after. I ended up on the streets, and you know what I learned there? I learned that everyone who walks past a homeless person believes they deserve to be there. We must have done something wrong. Made bad choices, been lazy or addicted or crazy. Nobody thinks, that could be me. But it could be Marcus. It always could be. I didn't help you that night because I wanted something from you. I helped you because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. Doctor or homeless woman, it doesn't matter. When someone is dying, you help them. But I do want to ask something of you. Not money. My daughter has done well enough to take care of me, though I wouldn't let her. I was too proud, and that's on me. What I want is this, remember. Remember that the woman who saved your life was invisible to the world. Remember that she had value, that she had skills, that she had a life before the streets. Remember that every homeless person you see has a story, and that story might include being a doctor, a teacher, a veteran, a parent who lost everything trying to save their child. You have power, Marcus. More power than most people will ever have. Use it to see the invisible. Use it to help the people everyone else has decided aren't worth helping. That's all I ask. That's my payment for your life. Stay well, Dr. Dorothy Williams. Marcus read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face. When he finally looked up, Sarah was watching him with eyes exactly like her mother's. She wouldn't let me help her, Sarah said softly. I'm a successful attorney. I could have gotten her an apartment, gotten her off the streets. But she said she needed to finish something first. She said she needed to understand something. She paused. I think saving you was part of that understanding. Marcus set the letter down carefully. Did she tell you anything else? She said to tell you that you reminded her of herself, back before she lost everything. She said you had kind eyes, even when you were dying. And she said, Sarah's voice cracked slightly. She said she hoped that what happened to you would change you in a way that losing everything changed her. She hoped it would make you more human. The silence in the office stretched long enough that Sarah began gathering her things. I should go. I just wanted you to have her letter, to know who she was. Wait, Marcus said. He stood, walked to the window, looked down at the city far below. From this height, people were invisible, just dots moving through their lives. Your mother saved my life with training she received decades ago. Training that helped her even after she'd lost everything else. How many other people are out there like her? People with skills, with knowledge, with something to give, but no one sees them. He turned back to Sarah. I want to start a foundation, the Dorothy Williams Foundation. We'll provide medical care for the homeless, but more than that, we'll document their skills, their histories, their potential. We'll help them find work, housing, purpose, and we'll tell their stories, so people remember that they're human beings, not just problems to ignore. Sarah stared at him. Mr. Chen, I'm worth $8 billion, Ms. Williams. I almost bled out in an alley, and the only person who stopped to help me was a woman everyone else had decided wasn't worth noticing. Your mother was right. I need to use what I have to see the invisible. He picked up the letter again. This is more valuable than any business deal I've ever made. This is a blueprint for actually matching. Sarah's professional composure finally cracked, and she smiled through tears. She would have liked that. She would have liked that very much. 2 years later, the Dorothy Williams Foundation operated in 15 cities across America. The model was simple but revolutionary. Treat every homeless person not as a problem to be managed, but as a person with inherent value and potential. Former engineers helped other homeless people build tiny home communities. Former teachers ran literacy programs. Former nurses staffed mobile medical clinics. The foundation documented over 3,000 stories of people whose lives had been derailed by tragedy, not by laziness or moral failing, by medical debt, by mental illness, by domestic violence, by economic collapse, by simple bad luck. Marcus Chen was no longer just a billionaire CEO. He was a man who died in an alley and been given a second chance by someone the world had discarded. He visited foundation sites regularly, not for photo ops, but to listen, to learn, to remember. In his wallet, he carried a small photo of Dorothy Williams, not from her homeless days, but from her time as a doctor, young and confident in her white coat. Sarah had given it to him. On the back, Dorothy had written a quote that had apparently been her personal motto. The measure of our humanity is in how we treat those who can do nothing for us. On the anniversary of the night Dorothy saved him, Marcus always spent the evening at the foundation's main shelter in Chicago. He'd serve meals, talk with residents, and when the night grew late, he'd walk to the alley where he'd nearly died. Someone had painted a mural there, unauthorized by the city but tolerated because of who had funded it. It showed Dorothy's face, beautiful and strong, with the simple words, "She saw the invisible." Marcus would stand there, touching the scar on his side, and remember that every person has value. Remember that you never know who might save your life. Remember that being human means helping others even when, especially when, they can do nothing for you in return. The ambulance sirens had wailed that night, but they'd arrived too late to save him on their own. It had taken a homeless woman with steady hands and a doctor's heart to keep him alive long enough. Dorothy Williams had asked him to remember, to use his power to see the invisible. He would remember. For the rest of his life, he would remember. And in remembering, he would honor her in the only way that mattered, by making sure others saw what she had seen, the infinite value of every human life, no matter how broken, how lost, how invisible to the world. Because on a cold February night in a Chicago alley, the invisible woman had been the only one who saw him, and in seeing him, she had changed everything.